Hello and welcome to episode number 273 of the Launch Lounge podcast. Today's episode is called How to Build a Highly Engaged Community with my guest, Leever. If you've ever struggled with building a thriving community around your course or membership, or you've wished you knew how to create more engagement in your current community, this episode is absolutely for you, so stay tuned. Today I'm chatting with Leever, a brilliant community strategist who helps coaches, consultants, and course creators build paid online communities that actually work and that they actually love. She's going to break down the 4 types of communities, explain the crucial difference between education-centric and connection-centric environments, and share some genius strategies for boosting engagement that go way beyond post your win of the week prompts. Bree got her start building a community and growing it to a multi-million-dollar revenue stream for a brand in Portland, Oregon. Now she helps coaches, consultants, and course creators build thriving online communities for their businesses. She's a community strategist by day and a camper van host by night on the big island of Hawaii, and you'll usually find her on, in, or under the water. And without further ado, let's jump to the interview. Here's Bree. Bree, thank you so much for joining me on the Launch Lounge podcast today. I'm very excited for what you're going to share with our listeners today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Big fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll just tell everyone how we met. We were 2 introverts at a networking function drinks thing at Alt Summit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the introverts can spot each other very quickly.
We're like, you doing okay?
Yeah. I see you got that deer in headlights look like me. Well, thank you for being here. And I want to say, one of my favorite things is connecting with introverts because, or with anyone that I can very quickly have I want to say a significant, a meaningful, there's depth and volume to our connection instantly because we just went, oh, wow. Yeah, we have this community membership thing in common. Yeah. And I was amazed when you told me what you did. I was like, what? Get out of town. So for our listeners, please, can you tell us what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I also in those environments, I'm always kind of looking for the quiet authority in the room. And I feel like I found a diamond in the rough with you. So thank you for matching my energy on that day. Yeah. So for our listeners, I support coaches, consultants, and creators in building their online paid communities. And sometimes that's a membership, sometimes that's a different form of community, but that was really the spark for us that ignited it all.
Yeah. And when you said membership or community, I don't remember which word you used, but having listened now to your podcast and having read some of the stuff that you write, can you help the audience understand, help our listener understand, what do you see the difference between a membership and a community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I use community as my broad umbrella term for creating a container. It can be online or in person. I work with online communities, so digital containers where we are bringing people together for the purposes of education and connection. And every community has a combination of education and connection. How I break it down really simply is I define a membership. A membership is maybe more defined by its practicalities. They tend to be evergreen. They tend to be like a subscription. That what's happening inside can range quite broadly. But I would generally say that memberships tend to be connection-centric communities.
Okay. Memberships tend to be...
I have more, but it's pausing on my video, so I didn't want to say more. Let me switch really quick. Over to, You can't turn off your camera while recording, but you can switch to other cameras, but it's not letting me switch to my FaceTime camera. Should I just proceed with?
It's done it twice now where it kind of freezes on your face for a while. So it did it with me and then you just saw it as well, where it freezes on your face, but your audio keeps going and then your video comes back. So I'm happy if you want, because we pull snippets for the video. We don't use the full video. So I'm happy for you to keep going and just if you see it freeze, just keep going. And if there's a problem, I'll stop you. But otherwise, we'll make do with however the video is. This is not primarily video. We just pull snippets from it. So that's cool. So let's go back. So let me ask the question again, and then you're going to have to answer it again. I don't remember how I said it. You and I talked about memberships and communities, and of course you work with coaches and course creators and creators in general. So all the people that I love as well. But can you tell me a little bit? Just what do you see as the distinction between a community and a membership? Because in our world we call it memberships, and we kind of have this blanket term. It's membership. You either launch a course or you launch a membership. But what do you see as the difference between communities and memberships?
Yep. It's a great question. So community to me is the broad umbrella term. It's the container where people are gathering. And in the online spaces, well, it can be online or it can be in person. I specialize in online community experiences. And every community has a combination of education and connection. Depending on which you have more of, that's how I delineate the type of community that we're talking about. So for me, like even a cohort-based course is unless it's like entirely siloed and entirely self-paced and people aren't interacting in any way, shape, or form, that's a communal experience. That's an education-centric communal experience. Memberships, on the other hand, tend to be connection-centric environments. So this is where the value of the experience and the value of being a part of that community comes from your interactions with other members. There's still education happening, but it's not on this like guided, intended educational path where someone is like showing you the process from A to Z. It's more so that you're gleaning educational bits because of the way that the container is designed to help you interact with other members. So connection-centric environments, also known as memberships, education-centric communities, also known as cohort-based courses or cohort-based experiences.
And both of those, and so you're not just talking about memberships when you talk about communities, you're also talking about building thriving communities inside like cohort-based courses. And by cohort-based courses, we're talking about, someone who's just launched a course and they've got 6 or 8 weeks or maybe 12 months or whoever knows how long, but you have a clearly defined beginning and end. And those people are going through a shared experience, which creates community, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And it all kind of falls under the term community for me, especially because people are usually, whichever one they have, if it's a membership, they're usually trying to figure out how they can get the benefits of like a cohort-based environment. And the people who are doing a cohort-based educational program are usually asking like, how do I get the benefits of a membership in here? And people are always kind of wanting both. But make no mistake, when you do both, you're running two communities. And they're two separate they're two different types of communities that come with their own set of strengths and their own set of challenges. But there's also some hybrid models and some ways that you can experiment and kind of flex, like your education-centric environment can really embed connection into the DNA of what is happening there. And that's like the strongest education-centric experiences I've had have relied heavily on connection. So there's definitely, it's a very fluid model, but it helps me, especially when people are first starting out and they're tempted in a way that self-sabotages. They're tempted to take on more than they actually need to just to get the test out there and just to get started.
Yeah. So do you work with a lot of course creators? and what sort of work do you do with course creators in terms of helping them build great cohorts, but also then helping them maybe, once that cohort is done, everybody wants to start a membership. Everyone puts them into a back-end membership or a mastermind of some kind, which is also probably a cohort-based thing. So tell me a little bit about how you can work with course creators to help them build and then nurture these different communities, whether it's a membership or a cohort-based community.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll start with the root of it and the foundation is when a course creator comes to me and they are interested in creating a more connection-centric environment, they're approaching it from a couple directions. And really the thing that I'm looking for the most is that I'm looking for an identity shift for them where they are moving from an identity as the educator, the person who has all of the answers, and they want to shift into this role of connector and facilitator, prompter. They want to prompt their members. They want to create the container where value is being created and fostered outside of just them.
Right.
Sometimes they'll say that they want that because that sounds really nice. Like if you create the container where value, like you're on vacation, but there's still stuff happening and members creating value for each other. That sounds amazing. But often they are not ready to let go of the ego that comes with being the person who has all the right answers and being the person that everybody comes to. So that's kind of one of the first things I look for is like, are you equipped for that identity shift? Do you actually want to shift into that? Or does it just sound nice, but you actually really are like in your sweet spot as the educator and you just need to rock it. So it kind of depends on who it is and what they want. Like that's a really foundational one and it's sneaky. We don't always know. So
well, can I ask you a clarifying question? So if a course creator wants a community that is community centric, like you said something, you said you have to have this almost maybe tough conversation with them about shifting the identity from being the educator to being the heart of this community. Are you saying someone who is the main educator can't also be the warm and fuzzy community leading person who like holds the community together? Talk more about that, please.
Yeah, no, I think they absolutely can do both. And when you are shifting your focus from being the educator, the person who is guiding your members through a communal experience, and you are now positioning yourself as the connector, it's a different skill set. When someone asks a question in your community, your job is not to answer it. Your job is to empower other members who are one chapter ahead of that person. So it's just a shift in your own role, and it's you might not like it and your members might not expect it. So it really takes a lot of intentional design and intentional practice for you to catch yourself, because the second you put yourself in that hero's role again, it's gonna stunt your members from being able to show up for each other, because they're like, well, I could comment on that, but Salome's gonna come in and give us the right answer anyways, so why bother?
Yeah. And so I feel, because so many of us step in this, and I've stepped in this myself, it was challenging for me building that community, having someone in the community be the person or the facilitator of connection, and it not being me. That's definitely something that I had to learn, because I initially, when I started my membership, I felt burnt out answering everybody's questions. And so what I hear you saying is, if you're thinking about taking your course or your cohort-based program and then turning it into something that is community-based, you're going to need someone to fill the role of community glue, community facilitator. And it doesn't have to be the expert, but the expert needs to be very clear on the fact that there needs to be someone in that role. Am I right?
Yeah, at least to get it started, because when you're
Mm.
initially starting out, you are modeling for your members the behavior that you want them to adopt. So
Yeah.
they might just not know how it works, and
Mm.
they might not know what to expect when they first come in. So either
Mm.
you or someone who is in your community manager role needs to be the person. And I wouldn't necessarily, I would say that the glue in this metaphor is the exchange between your members. The
Yeah.
person who is the community manager in this case is the person prompting those interactions. So I
Mm.
wouldn't oh, I had another
Mm.
word instead of glue. Bridge. They're not
Mm.
creating the glue, but they're creating the bridge
Mm.
between these members. They're
Yeah.
creating and prompting those interactions to happen. When they happen, that's what makes everything really sticky and what
Mm.
gets people coming back outside of anything that any like content that you are
Mm.
creating.
Yeah. But often, especially for course creators who have cohort based courses and then want back end memberships, what often happens is the reason people want that back end membership is because they loved the educator and the facilitation that the educator provided in the way that they provided it. And so they think they want a membership.
Mm-hmm.
They think they
Mm-hmm.
want a community, and there's a part of it that they do want, but I have to ask you this question: is it a, because I know my listeners are wondering, because some of them have had courses and memberships, and some of them fluctuate between courses and membership, but isn't it a big culture shock then? Because people, they want more of what they had during that cohort experience, and now you're putting them in a membership where, well, hang on, now the founder's not showing up the way the founder used to show up. Is there, are you there?
I am here. It cut out,
Okay, sorry.
but I heard you say, and now the founder is like not, central to this piece.
Yeah, so, and now the founder is no longer showing up the way that the founder did show up, which is what they
Mm-hmm.
wanted in the first place. And now, talk to me a little bit more about that shock when people are moved from a cohort based space where they loved being in the cohort space. And that's the reason that the founder starts a membership or creates a membership. And then is there like a culture shock when they realize, oh, hang on, but this is going to be different?
Yeah. Yep. So there's a couple ways we can approach this. And what I want to start with is our education to connection ratio
Yeah.
in both of those environments. So if your cohort based program is, maybe it's a course, maybe it's like a course with group calls, if it's 90% education and 10% connection, and then we are moving them into a membership community.
Hang on, you just broke up. I think we're going to need to switch the cameras off.
Okay.
Yeah.
It won't let me select my other camera. It's not possible to pause recording, is it? Because I think if we did that, it would let me.
Okay. Okay, we're recording.
I love this question. And there's a couple ways we can approach it. So I want to start by talking about the education to connection ratio. In either of these programs, your membership or your course, ask yourself, what is the ratio of education to connection? If your course is 95% education and 5% connection, like they can literally only see each other's comments on your videos, then moving them into your membership where it's 95% connection and 5% education is going to be a shock. Like that's going to be, you're going to have to facilitate that transition, and you're going to have to message the difference between those two experiences very clearly.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge shift. If you're noticing like, well, my course is like 70% education, 30% connection, maybe I'll see how I can bump that up. Maybe I can do, we can do some extra co-working sessions for people who are working through the course so that they get a little bit more time together. Maybe I do My first session is more dedicated to onboarding and how we give good feedback on each other's work in this course. So there's like things you can do within your course to up your connection level. And there's things that you can do in your membership to up your education level. So whether that's like the library of like it's a big library of recorded content that they get access to from you, or maybe it's like you host micro programs inside of your membership that you are guiding and you are leading. So it's not really that like one has to be like there's the one, it's not that there's one right way to do it, but if you're noticing that like these two different programs are on totally opposite sides of the spectrum, like the transition from one to the other is going to need more handholding, it's going to need clearer messaging. Or you can just work on adjusting that ratio for yourself to prime your members for the transition.
I love that. I love that. I feel like for me growing up in this industry and having like I genuinely grew up in this industry believing you do a course or you do a membership, and you do one of the two, and there's pros and cons to both, and there's different ways to run both, but sorry. But the way that you're describing the difference between educational content and connection content makes so much sense. And it shows me why sometimes people are unhappy when they're in memberships, or sometimes we think we're launching a membership, but it's actually a group coaching program, or we think it's a group coaching program, but it's actually a mastermind, and that I love these nuanced differences that you're making between the connection driver and the education driver. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it is why I stay away. Well, and I just didn't come into this industry from the same angle that you did, so I didn't have that vernacular, and it's why I actually stay away from using the word membership and cohort-based course, because those terms really articulate more of like the how we are executing and how we are delivering the content, then they do speak to the essence of what it is and why our members are gathered there. So I use different language in an attempt to get around the baggage that we have with those terms and kind of get a clean slate. But then people don't always know what I'm talking about. So there's that.
Well, yeah. And I think it probably depends on, the background of the person you're talking about. Because, it's when you're talking to coaches, they would have a different experience of membership and of community. Because you've run communities for like paid products as well, and e-commerce companies as well, right?
Yes. So this is like where my really zoomed out view of community comes in, is like, I was like, whoa, community is like this term that it holds so many things and means so many different things to so many different people. Let's not even get into like the difference between community and audience. Like everyone wants to call their social media following their community.
We're going there. We're going there. Don't worry,
God.
We're going there.
Stop. For the love of God, stop watering down my SEO by calling your audience a community. For the love of God. Like, it is so annoying.
That is so funny. So what? You're saying my email list is not my community?
No, it's not. An audience consumes, a community participates is my...
Ooh, yeah, back up. Say that again.
An audience consumes, a community participates. So I understand that you might be facilitating a communal experience in your Instagram comments. Someone would not say that they are a part of your Instagram community. They follow you on Instagram, okay? That is what they do, which is fine. but let's just call it what
Yeah.
it is and stop
Yeah.
pretending that like our members are people are showing up in the comments. Sometimes this is happening and it's magic when it
Mm.
does, because we're
Mm.
like, oh my God, this is what real community actually feels like. And social
Yeah.
media gave us this like fake plastic version and told
Mm-hmm.
us that performance and creating and basically feeding the content engine to be consumed was community, and it wasn't. And now we've ended
Yeah.
up in this
Yeah.
extremely disconnected space online where we're like, wait, this didn't fulfill the promise that we thought it would. What happened? And it's because social
Yeah.
media taught us how to build an audience, not a community.
Oh, amen to that. And I'm going to take it even a step further and say, I don't think your email list is a community either.
No.
Your email list is also, they're there for consumption, right?
Yep. They're there to connect with
And
you,
whilst,
which is
yeah, and whilst you're going to share your culture and you're going to share your values, and so there's the, you have that in common, it's not a community. Yeah, there's no communal experience.
No. And sometimes the seeds of community can be born from within your newsletter. You might be saying, "Hey, hit reply and let me know what this is bringing up for you." And you find this golden thread through all the replies and you're like, "Oh my gosh, these people need to see each other." And then your next email, you create more visibility so that they can like kind of see that thread too. But it's not ultimately a space where people are participating with you. It's they're responding it's a one-to-one response, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that it is different and distinct from a community, which my like kind of essential definition of community is that it's a group of people who identify as a part of a group that gathers for a shared purpose, vision, and goals. Or interests. We can add interests in there too.
Yeah.
The key word in that definition is identity. Because once someone shifts into an identity as a part of your group, there's actually so much more we can do. Like we have so much more room to play. This becomes like a really fun playground rather than when someone opts in as a subscriber or a follower or like gives you permission to like come into their feed. They're an audience member, which is there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. They're a consumer.
They're a consumer. Yep.
Yeah. And they're there to consume one way. And that it doesn't mean you don't share values and you don't share different things. I love that. And you definitely share connection, but it's not a community. I love that. So you have this beautiful quadrant model where you divide communities up in free or paid and the connection and the education. Do you want to share a little bit of that model? And I'll share a picture of that model on the show notes of this page, because I feel like you just explain it so well in that model. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about the difference between education and connection, and that's really like one of the differentiators. Is this like an education-centric community or is it connection-centric? And again, I'm not talking about like if there's education, there's not connection. Like these are not mutually exclusive. What I mean by education is there is a person who is guiding a very deliberate, intended learning journey and path. On the other hand, we look at, very simply, is this community free or is it paid? Until I come up with sexier terms, that's what it's going to be.
That's all right. It's clear. Yeah. I get that.
So I come from the world of brand communities, of communities that are built for customers. And these tend to be free communities that are designed to nurture your customers and either woo them in to become purchasers, or they've purchased and we want to elevate their learning and the way that they use the tool or the product or whatever we're providing so that they can do it more effectively and do it more often.
Can you give us some examples of those?
Yeah, yep. So free education-centric communities, I call these nurturing communities. These are communities that are empowering their customers with education on how to use their product most effectively. A great example is the Etsy community. The Etsy community for sellers teaches people how to sell and build their business effectively on Etsy.
Okay, so this is a free space where somebody has to join and they have to be a seller on Etsy, but they get to join this community for free, and there's resources for them to grow their business.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you have an example of that in the courses, membership, coaching space? Is it a Facebook group?
So
a free Facebook group?
Our free connection-centric community. So keep in mind, connection-centric means the primary value of the community comes from my interactions between members. And because it's free, it has those interactions that are happening in this space have to support the product and the business in some way. This is Facebook group Mecca. This is where all and the reason is because connection-centric communities, the value of that experience is entirely dependent on people showing up and interacting. So these and they're free. So it's like there's not a lot of skin in the game. It's like you kind of hope to like distract people into it a little bit. So these communities had to be built where people already are and where they are very frequently. So Facebook groups were a natural default. There's a lot of Discord communities that would fall into this territory, even some Slack communities. I call these collaborative communities. In some ways, they are my least favorite because now a lot of them, and any that like weren't tied to a product but were tied to a service, are now like freaking out and figuring out like, how do we monetize? How does our free community move to a paid community? And it's like this whole cluster.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
I feel like those communities can be a real headache if you don't have a really good way to monetize them.
They absolutely are. And for a lot of reasons. I don't think that service-based businesses should have collaborative communities. I
agree with that wholeheartedly.
They might make sense for product-based businesses. There's a few good reasons. But some of my absolute favorite communities also sit in this category. So there's one, it's called the Lego Ideas community. And it belongs to like the product department of Legos. So you join this community and all the members can have the ability to submit CAD designs to be voted on for future Lego sets that you want to see created. So you've got like your Taylor Swift Eras Tour Lego set, and you've got like, I don't know, your umpteenth Star Wars Lego set that's like super custom and niche, and I don't even know what it is. So members are upvoting, and then the Lego sets with the most votes get brought into production. It's like this huge deal. It's like this cult following. That's a free community where the value that's being created there is coming from interactions between your members. They're voting on each other's stuff, and they're commenting back and forth, and they're like giving feedback and asking questions about how to create their CAD designs or their Lego sets. So that's like
amazing,
incredibly valuable for Lego. And they built it somewhere that they built it like entirely natively to like the Lego website. So it's actually not anywhere like a Facebook group. So that's cool. Actually one of my favorite communities of all time.
Very cool. Yeah. I was going to say, if they built that on a Facebook group, that would be a nightmare to manage. Yeah. You'd be moderating all day. Yeah. That's a cool community. That's even a smart way to get people in the public to do your work for you.
100%. So what's really cool about the like free community space, that like where the community is supporting a different business vertical, there's like, depending on which business vertical you want your community to support, there's a lot of different ways your community can take shape and take form. Nurturing communities tend to report to customer success, but there's like, and actually I take issue with these actually being communities, like customer support communities. I don't actually think are communities, but whatever. Let's say customer support vertical communities. You've got product communities. You've got customer success. You've got marketing. My first foray into the community spaces was building a community of brand ambassadors for a social enterprise for 6 years. Like it was, cool. I didn't even have the language for community back then. I just thought I was like in sales and marketing. And then when I quit and I started digging into what I had actually been doing for the last 6 years, I was like, I was creating a community of customers. That's like what I've been doing every single day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, keep going with your model. So we've covered free Free connection based.
Yes.
What's the next one? If you're ready to start scaling your business, get back your time and step into your freedom empire, listen up. I'm excited to share that we've got just 2 spots opening up in our VIP client level in May. We're taking on 2 new course creators in the Launch Lounge marketing and ads agency during May. And honestly, we are pretty pumped about what we're offering. Here's the deal. We don't just run your ads. We're your go-to growth partners who look at your whole marketing picture. The best part? We've built some really cool AI tools that our clients are loving. These tools help spruce up your launch copy so it actually connects with your audience. They make your webinar content way more engaging, and they spot those missed opportunities in your sales process so you can turn more viewers into buyers during your launches. Our clients tell us they're finally getting off that exhausting launch roller coaster. They're seeing sales come in consistently and getting back precious time with their families. If you're already making at least $100K per year, have an offer that people love, and you're committed to doing the work to scale, we should definitely chat. You've built something awesome. Now let us help you grow it without the stress. Just head over to thelaunchlounge.com/agency and apply. But don't wait too long. Those 2 spots won't hang around.
So now we're moving into paid connection-centric communities. I call these networking communities. This is where our memberships would sit. These communities, the value, the product itself, the thing people are paying for is the environment where interactions are happening between members, and that is creating the value for what people are paying for.
Yeah. That's a lot of masterminds, I would say, too.
Yeah. Yep.
Where, there's an education element, but I think the value of that is the connections. Yeah.
Absolutely. And running like a short mastermind event series is like my number one recommendation for people who want to test out a connection-centric community. And they're like, I think I want to do this thing, but I'm not really sure. I always tell people, like, if you're trying to test out a community, run a really short series of events. Not just one event, because you need to make sure people will come to more than one. you need to make sure they come back. Yeah. So it's just a short event series. Use that. Events are just like the best like microcosm of a community, and they're so great because they have a start and they have an end, and so it's a good test because it doesn't go on forever. Yeah. Masterminds are a great example of this. A lot of connection-centric communities are like trying to get off of Facebook, but they're trying to find like, where's the new place where like, quote, everyone is hanging out. And while I do think it's important that your community is accessible and hosted somewhere that is easy and intuitive to use, my kind of come back to the old adage of, go to where your people, like build where your people already are. Yeah. I like to say good marketing goes to where people already are. Good community builds where people feel safe.
Oh, I like that.
And a lot of the places where we, quote, already are have become cesspools for normalized behavior that is not safe and does not feel like a place where we can show up and be authentic, honest, and open to the other members. Facebook groups are a great example. Absolutely. I don't have to give you details. You understand what I'm saying?
No, I get it. Yes. Yeah.
So connection-centric communities are like kind of in that like tough spot where they're like, it's important for our members to show up authentically and like be in a safe place. It's also important because the value here is so dependent on people showing up. Like it kind of has to be a place where people already are. And so they're kind of struggling with where should that be right now. And if you have a membership, you probably felt this. You're like, if I'm asking people to create a new login on a tool that they're not familiar with, like, is that going to create too much resistance to people showing up here if I don't give them all of this content and all of this other value? So what ends up happening is we just end up layering on value. And we're like, okay, I'll give you this and this and this and all of these reasons to show up. Which is fine. I think there's also ways that we can craft really remarkable connection-centric experiences and overcome some of that friction with new technology.
I agree. And I think our brains are just wired to go, well, if I make this easier for them, more of them are going to come, or they're more likely to come. And I literally just had a call with one of my clients, and she was like, well, they're not registering for the webinar, so should we remove the registration and just invite everyone? And I'm like, no,
Nope.
that's the last thing. But our brains work that way. Our brains go, can we make it easier?
And you know why, Salome?
Actually,
do you know why?
Yeah.
It's because we live in a society that worships comfort and convenience. And you know what's not comfortable and not convenient is community. Community, it's not those things. And I think it's why we've ended up where we are. And what's so hilarious is marketers like you and me will like spin our wheels trying to make community sound comfortable and sound convenient.
Yeah. And it's like being in a relationship with anyone it requires work.
Yes.
And you want to be in a relationship with someone else who's willing to do the work to be in a relationship with you.
100%. And so when you're signing up for a community, like, do your members know, like, they're signing up to show up. They're signing up to give generously. That is what they are signing up for. And we frame community like, join our community. It's like so low effort. You like barely even have to have a pulse. Like, you don't even have to spend any time there. If you want to just catch all the and I just think we do ourselves a disservice and we do our members a disservice by expecting so little, because community is so like, what you give into it is what you get out of it. It is a direct correlation. There are no hacks and no cheats on that. So you have to kind of get over this need to make it really easy. And the remedy for that is making it really valuable. Like, if I'm saying, hey, if you show up in this community every single day, I guarantee you will be $1 million richer a year from now. Like, if that's like, people are going to log in to the new technology. They're going to be okay with creating a login. If that's, but, and not that I'm saying that that's what you have to promise, but it's just, what's the value exchange? And what are you saying is going to be the transformation as a result of being in your community? And if people are not interested, it's because they do not think it's valuable enough.
Yeah. And that usually stems from not understanding either the pain that your customer is in, that they want to desperately get out of, or understanding the desired outcome that they truly, truly want. And that's like 101. Yep. It's like the basics. The better we can understand our customer and their desires and their pains, and the better we can articulate that, the better we'll be able to say, yeah, but this is where I'm going to take you to. Yep. And that's what you want. I love that.
And inside of community, you have to prompt them to reflect on that all the time. Like, you have to, the more you are asking of them and requiring of them in terms of transformation, the more you have to remind them of that and prompt them to reflect on what they want and why they are here. It's pretty, I've like been a part of some really intense communities that make you do like really weird stuff. like really intense challenges that require a lot. And it's because they're like, you're here because you don't want to keep doing things the same way that you've done. And they like keep hammering that. And you're like, yep. And I got to keep showing up. Okay, here we go.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit more? I absolutely love that. And I just want you to talk a little bit more about like creating those really high expectations. How is that different from holding people accountable?
Yes. So, okay, that's a great question. And I want to answer it in the frame of this, the fourth community, which is the education-centric paid one, because this is where you get to challenge people the most. So education-centric paid communities are like the gold mine for like getting people the most transformation, because and they're frankly easiest to market because there's this educational journey. You're like, I'm going to take you from point A to point B. Like, this is the communal road trip. You can also tell them, we are getting in this vehicle to take this road trip. Like it's going to be on this platform, whether you like it or not. So if you want to go to this destination, you'll get in the car. And they're like, I'm getting in the car. I will create the login.
Love it.
These communities are the most friendly to new technology. They're the most willing to overcome like obstacles and friction because there's a really clear transformation, and they're easier for you to market because they're based on that educational outcome. So with that being said, with all of these like strengths and like positives at our back, we can get really bold. And the more you charge people, the more bold you can get.
I love it. Yes. Tell me all the things about that, please.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to your question because it was something I just want to, can you re-articulate it for me? It was the difference between.
Yeah. So the difference between, so I'll tell you where my question comes from is I hate holding people accountable. And I think it's maybe, why is this? Let me think. Why do I hate it? Because I don't often need to be held accountable.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm just like, I did the work. If you're not going to do your part, like that's on you.
Yep.
And I guess, that's one of the challenges that I had to deal with in my membership is that I did not hold my students accountable enough because frankly, I don't like it. Right. But you were talking about expecting more of them and demanding things of them and making sure they have skin in the game and constantly reminding them of that. And that made me think, I think there's a degree of that sounds a little bit like accountability, but I think there's more to it than just accountability. So just tell me a little bit more about like constantly reminding them that they have skin in the game. It's more than accountability, right?
Yeah, and it requires boundaries. So I would put the distinction that I'm talking about. Accountability to me is like, is in some ways doing the work that they should be doing themselves.
Yeah.
And I can understand like being like, I'm not your babysitter. I'm not like, I have way more important things to do. That's different than creating a boundary that says, hey, as a requirement for being in this community, like when you join this community, you committed to showing up. We expect that you'll show up to at least one of our calls each month. At the point that no longer aligns with you and your priorities, that is totally fine, but this community is not the right fit for you. Meaning like we will kick you out if you don't show up to at least one call a month.
Yeah.
Or you can create. So I like to like create boundaries by using rules. And I like to implement rules that are kind of weird and they kind of shake people out of their normal behavior. So you can decide, and this is where it gets really fun because you get to decide how you want to make these like weird for your own community. So I've seen rules like it's a rule that when you're on our call, you have your video on because it's important for us to be present together and we're not anonymous here.
I love that. I love that
we
rule.
show up to be on video. And if you're not on video, you'll have 60 seconds before I remove you from the Zoom call.
Love it.
It's a boundary. You get to choose whether or not you show up in this way, but I'm telling you what the rules of engagement are. There's like rules that can also, so I like to define a rule as something that is breakable. So I like to keep like rules pretty purist in that sense. Then we also have more like what I call postures in your community, which are more like general stances, the spirit of how someone should arrive in your community.
Yeah. And like the values.
Yeah. Your values are, you can describe these as one-liners, as mantras, as values. In my community, we have a few that are, and they function as like rules and guidelines, but I don't like to define them as a rule because I like rules to be breakable. I like them to be really clear and crisp. But in my community, we have a few. So one is kooks only. And if you know what
I love that. I think mine would be dorks only.
Perfect. Yes. So if you know what a kook is, it's somebody who is like a new surfer. They are like usually like a danger to themselves and everyone else in the water. Like they do not know what they're doing. And it's like quite comical for the rest of us. I say it like very playfully in my community, but what I say in my community is it's impossible to learn something new and look good at the same time.
I love it.
This community is kooks only. So if you have to ask a dumb question, if you have to show up in a way that is like, I don't feel like I know what the F I'm doing today, that is completely welcome, because no locals, kooks only. That's one of ours. Another one is find someone who is one chapter ahead of you and one chapter behind you. The person you should be journeying with in this community is not the person who wrote the book. It's the person who's read one chapter ahead of you. They remember what it's like to be one chapter behind. And that's like, you're going to get value from me as like, quote, the person who wrote the book, but you're going to get even more value from the person who is reading one chapter ahead of you. So find that person.
I love it. Yeah. Give me some more. These are great. What are some really weird ones?
Yeah. Okay, so it's always different depending on the client, because I like to find something that like really speaks to them. I had a client recently, we're still in the midst of this project, but he like we were talking and I was trying to get him, one of the questions I ask my clients is like, talk to me about a community you've been a part of that you really loved. And sometimes people will be like, well, there's this business community on Slack that people are really helpful in. And they'll like stop. But I'm like, okay, tell me about another one. And we just like keep going until I actually see their eyes light up. So this happened for like, it took like 20 minutes. And then finally he was like, I'm a hockey referee or hockey officiant. And that is such an intense community, because like everyone hates you, but you're just like such a tight brotherhood. And so it's like this tech sales community. So we came up with this rule for giving feedback in this tech sales community. And like the process of giving feedback, we're calling it the face-off.
Oh, I love it.
And so the face-off is it's like a gift that you give to someone. It's like when you see someone like post their work or like ask a question, like you like step into a face-off with this person, you initiate a face-off as like you can do better. I see you and I think you can do better. And then there's like guidelines for like how you like issue a face-off. So it starts with like before you offer any feedback, you have to ask 3 questions. So it's just, you can like come up with your format. Easy one is like, how do you want your members to provide feedback to each other? If you can like turn that into a ritual, a rule, a posture, like have a really specific process. The best communities that I've been a part of have taken like an absurd amount of time to teach their members how to give each other feedback in a way that is meaningful. In some communities, the rule is you can't give feedback. Like in this channel where people are posting their, music auditions, we don't allow any feedback. It is only celebration because we're practicing just being brave enough to post the damn thing. Okay.
I love
it.
So
it depends on the community. It depends on the space, but those are some of the examples of what I like to come up with.
I love that. You were talking about some people take a ridiculous amount of time to teach their students this. Are you talking about onboarding, or is it onboarding and more?
Yeah, it's like within their onboarding, there is a chapter on how to provide feedback, and it is longer than you would expect.
Tell me about what you see as the ideal, or what are the things that has to be in any community onboarding to make it a really great community?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So onboarding is its own whole chapter. So we could like talk about onboarding. A couple key notes here. I love, and this ties into like a separate strategy in community building for me, which is that I like to structure my community and the design and the onboarding experience itself to be the thing that weeds out who, if they got through the door and we're not sure if they're the right fit, by the end of onboarding, they know if they're the right fit. Yeah. They know if this is the community or this is like requiring too much, or like, I thought this was like a place I could show up and just show off on the internet, and this is like clearly not that.
Yeah.
So I love to make that super obvious in our onboarding. there's a couple ways you can do that. One is like with your rules and with your postures, but also with a welcome video. So talking about why are we here? Who is here? Like who you are going to find in this space. Also, who is not the right fit. So if you're coming in here because you're expecting that this is like a place where you can get a free pass and like check off a box that you've completed this, like this is not the right space for you. Like go find a course where you can just like mark complete on your video, but that's not this space.
Yeah.
So I love to like call out really specifically, like who is this for? Who is this not for? What can you expect here? What can you not expect here? I like to keep onboarding pretty simple when it comes to here are your first actions. And I break it down into 3 steps. So 3 things that they can do to get started. The first is always introduce yourself, and we have some guidelines for that. Second is RSVP for the next event. And then the third one, I like to bake into the onboarding experience some type of challenge that they can accept or deny. And when they accept it, what this challenge does is it helps them inventory where they are at with regards to the thing that your community helps them accomplish.
Oh, okay.
We turn that inventory can be a reflection, it can be a survey, it can be like they are creating something. I like to turn that inventory into an artifact that is then we revisit and we prompt them to look at it again a year from now. And we say, remember what it was like when you first joined? Remember how you answered the question, what your biggest challenge was? Remember, we were just talking about this for a yoga community. I was like, ooh, you should, for their inventory, you should have them submit a video of the toughest yoga pose that they haven't mastered yet. And they have to submit a video of them failing at that pose. A year from now, we send them that video and say, hey, let's check in. How far have you come? For those who have come really far, we say, look how far you've come. It's time to celebrate that. For those who fell off the wagon, we say, hey, if you're not at the place where you thought you'd be, that's okay. This is your chance to begin again, because we're like, there's so much more waiting for you inside the community.
I love it.
So it acts as a retention tool, but it also like, I love to like kind of freeze who they are when they enter the community in like by using this inventory and turning it into an artifact, we're able to like remind them and mark their growth in ways that are really difficult to quantify with numbers.
Yeah. And would you do this for memberships or communities that have start stops? I mean, I can see how it works really well with communities with clear starts and stops, but what about ongoing memberships that doesn't necessarily have a clear start and stop?
Totally. And this is where connection-centric communities, it's like, it's the challenge with them, because connection in and of itself is not an outcome. Connection is the vehicle to some other outcome. So in your onboarding, in that challenge, in that inventory, part of what you have to do is prompt them to get really clear on why they are there and what they want that transformation to look like. Even though we're not telling them, like they're not joining and we're telling them, this is the exact transformation you're expecting and we're expecting. They're joining for like, they might not always know why. So we have to prompt them to think about like, what can this community do for you and what could be different for you a year from now because you are a part of this community. Like set some goals, set some intentions. Here are some of the things that members have done in the past that could be possible for you. So you can still do it in a connection-centric environment. It just looks different and you have to be really deliberate about it. It's even more important that you do it in a connection-centric environment, because otherwise people just come in and they like float off into the abyss.
Yeah, we need that. And that's definitely something that I missed. I know I missed that because I didn't do that enough in my membership. When I had the membership, I definitely didn't do that enough. So and because I equaled that to accountability.
Yeah.
And it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Right. And
our brains need milestones. Our brains need to be like, oh, I'm making progress. Otherwise we are just floating in space.
Yeah. And it's not you chasing after them and like, did you fill out your intention? Did you fill out your intention? But it's setting up the roadmap and the system so that for those people who are there to like really get the most out of the experience, you've guided them intentionally.
Yeah. What would be your advice? Because I know this is something that people wonder about, and then we'll wrap up. What would be your advice to people who feel the engagement in their communities aren't quite where they want it to be? How do you kickstart engagement, and how do you bring it back if you've lost it?
Yeah, this is such a good question. It's such a huge question. So, this couldn't come at a better time because I'm in the middle of a 3-part YouTube series on
Oh, yay.
designing your community for great engagement using habit formation principles. So,
yes, talk more.
So, if you're familiar with habit formation principles, there are 3 essential ingredients to a habit, which great engagement is nothing more than like a habit. Like the best version of great engagement is like, it's not just a one-time occurrence. This is something that has become normalized behavior. People are taking the actions in our community that are going to create value for everyone in the community. So to do that, we break down the habit formation recipe, which is prompts that lead to an action that lead to a reward. When the reward is in place, now it becomes a habit. Now it becomes normalized routine behavior. And this is really, it's so easy to feel like I know this feeling of like, you're like, how in the world? Like, it's hard enough to get people to talk to me. How do I get them talking to each other? Like in a way that's actually valuable. Like it can feel so slippery, but honestly, it couldn't be farther from the truth with how much power you have to influence and design an environment that prompts and rewards your members for the actions that you want to see them take. So I have like a lot of angles from which we approach engagement, but one that you can start with really practically is looking at how are you prompting your members to take the actions that you want to see. And you can prompt people directly or indirectly using the environment. You can also prompt the initiator of the conversation and the responder of the conversation. So we usually only focus on direct prompts for the initiator, right?
Tell me so what would be an example of that?
Share a win from your week. Share a priority for your week. Share.
So that's a prompt. So say that's a prompt for the initiator.
It's a direct prompt for the initiator. Yes.
And who is the initiator in this case? It's the person responding?
Yes. Yep. Well, so the initiator is like the person initiating anything. So you're kind of, by being direct, you're kind of like the initiator, but you might have you know, somebody who comments and then somebody who responds to their comment. So I'm calling like the person who comments is the initiator.
Okay. All right.
We basically start at that box, and that's like all we consider is like we can ask our members questions and they can respond. That's pretty much all we can do. When you think about all the other options, we've got direct prompts for the responder. We've got indirect prompts for the initiator and indirect prompts for the responder. So I have a whole another matrix, Salome. Maybe this is like part 2. We got Free's extended edition matrix. And within this matrix, I have 52 prompts and like just brainstormed ideas for like things that you can prompt your members to share. And so part 1 of that video is going to be actually on YouTube tomorrow. And then it's like a part of a 3-part series.
Right. Awesome. We'll make sure that there's a link because the videos will be published by the time this goes live. Yeah. Can you give me one example of those indirect or those different prompts quickly? Just because I think our audience will really find it valuable to go, oh, that's an indirect prompt? Yeah, I can do that. So give me some examples.
Yeah. So this is exactly what we've been talking about with rules, rhythms, and rituals. With indirect prompts, rather than you being the person who is like prompting the thing, you're creating the environment which prompts your members. So a great example for this one that I like to use is we created a rule that if someone is in a comparison spiral, they come into our community and they post with the little tornado emoji. And that's like our symbol for like, you guys, help.
Yeah.
I'm in a comparison spiral and I need somebody to take me out.
Right.
Then we have a very specific process. When you see someone in a comparison spiral, ask them these 3 questions or this one question. Okay. So
love it.
That's an indirect prompt, both for the initiator and for the responder. We say, when this is happening in your life, the first thing you do is you come in here because we're here to support you. When you see that and you are the responder, you have a responsibility to respond with curiosity. And here are some of the questions that you can ask. So
I love that so much, because I think what you've done is you've identified common scenarios or common situations or common issues that come up, and you've given people language to talk about it, so that they don't, because usually I don't even think most of the time, a lot of us, we don't just not have the language. We also don't often have the awareness that we're in a spiral like that or something. And so by knowing your ideal customer, you've identified these common things that happen to them that keeps them stuck or that creates a negative feeling or what. And you've given language, not just to the person experiencing that, but also to the people responding to that, so that you can then turn it completely around. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And it's a dance, right? Like you might make this rule and nobody does it for like 30 days. And so you get on your next office hours and you ask your members, who's been in a comparison, who like fell into a comparison spiral in the last 30 days? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to head into breakout rooms. You're going to be matched to somebody who's been in a comparison spiral. And we're going to follow our process in the community. They come back in and you're like, okay, next time this happens to you, next time your heart rate is racing and you're feeling like you're less than enough, you come straight into this community. Okay. So it's like you have to, it's a science and it's a dance and it's an art, and you have to like pay attention. And just because somebody doesn't pick up your rule doesn't mean it's a bad rule. It just means you might need to be creating a bridge to it that's a little bit more accessible.
Yeah. I love these bridges. I love how you're pulling it out of them and getting just like proactively creating a safe space for the common issues that you know is there. Brie, I think this is like the best point to like wrap it up. Is there one thing you want to leave our audience with that will help them build better communities?
Oh, that's a great question. If you want to get nerdy with me on the 4 types of communities and do a deep dive on their strengths and their weaknesses, I do have a free masterclass that you can sign up for. And then the Dear Brie podcast is like the best, most binge-worthy community strategy out there. It is so fun. It's an advice column for community conundrums, fiascos, and drama. So it's like healthy community strategy, but like deep fried in good storytelling. So it tastes good going down.
It is. I would encourage anyone to go and listen to the Dear Brie podcast. I've listened to a few episodes, and Brie's got some amazing, incredible people on there who have done really incredible work. And it is, like she says, it's wrapped up in this humorous, fun, almost soap opera like drama. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. So the podcast, that's the main place where people can go.
Yeah, and then I'm on LinkedIn, so I love rambling there. Great. So that's like my only social channel. Awesome. But if you want to stay in touch with like all the juicy things coming out of Ember, our newsletter is also a great place to head.
Fantastic. I love your work. I'm a huge fan of the way that your brain works and how what you've developed and how you are able to give words to these community experiences that we all by default, by being the faces of our business, we are community leaders. We are, when every time we enroll people in courses, every time we enroll them in our memberships, we are by default community leaders. And so I love learning from you, and I love seeing just how you open up all the things that gets me all stuck and twisted in knots about these things. So thank you very much.
Well, I only know because I've been there, so you're not alone.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Brie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Salome. Thanks for having me.
Wow. I don't know about you, but my head is spinning with so many brilliant insights from Brie. I love how she completely reframes the way we think about communities versus audiences. An audience consumes, a community participates. That distinction alone is worth its weight in gold. And those engagement strategies she shared, well, they're going to be game changing. I particularly loved the idea of creating specific rituals and rules that prompt interaction, like the tornado emoji for comparison spirals. It's so much more powerful than just holding people accountable. It's about designing an environment that naturally encourages the behaviors that we want to see. If you're running a course or a membership right now, I encourage you to think about where your community falls on Bree's matrix. Are you an education-centric or a connection-centric community? And how can you adjust your approach to better serve your members? For all the show notes and links to Bree's podcast and that brilliant 4-quadrant community model we discussed, head over to thelaunchlounge.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes for today's episodes with all the links you need to Bree's business. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you found this valuable, please take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with a friend who's building their own online community. I'll be back next week with another episode to help you keep building your freedom empire. See you then. Bye. Before you go, if today's episode helped you, imagine how many more lives could be transformed if other creators, coaches, and experts found these strategies too. Your shares and reviews help more course creators discover how to get their knowledge out into the world. Please take a moment to rate the show and leave a quick review. When you do, we get to reach more people and we make a bigger impact together. Because when more people who help people succeed, the world becomes a better place. Thank you.